Michael Bratton, that SEC podcast on X, on YouTube, all over the place. Best SEC podcast in the country. And that is a fact. The rankings show that. Michael, welcome in, sir. How are you?
Hey, now that the dynasty is officially decayed, I'm doing great, Jake. How are you?
I'm doing good. As a Tennessee fan, I'm sure you're torn, right? Because you feel that way, I'm sure. But then you're like, okay, I got to kind of be objective here, but maybe not. Were you shocked by the announcement yesterday?
Oh, yeah. And I think like everybody else, I had to double and triple check to make sure this was actual news being reported, not some troll account that was trying to fool us all for kicks or whatever. But, yeah, the timing of it and apparently, he was working up to the day he made the decision. And he just did an interview with ESPN. I don't know if you've caught it yet, but he said literally 5 minutes before the team meeting where he announced he was going to retire, he didn't know if he was going to do it or not. So, yeah, pretty stunning news.
So when you look at obviously we know about Saban. We know about everything he did for Tuscaloosa. We've talked about this, for almost 2 days now about what he's meant to that program and that town. Him now out the door, what does this do towards the SEC? Does this reset Alabama? Does it bring them back to the pack? We'll talk about who could the next guy be here in a minute, but I wouldn't want to be that guy to follow him.
Right, and you hear that narrative, but these guys, the way they're wired, Jake, these alpha coaches, they're not going to be scared by it. I truly don't think, even though it's a no-win situation. But hey, most of these guys got into it, Jake, to win a national championship. And if you go to Alabama today, short of maybe Georgia and maybe Ohio State, that may be the only other place, you're set up to win that national championship a lot sooner than you ever would wherever you're at. So it's an elite job. Don't kid yourself, and they'll find a quality candidate. But in terms of how this resets things, I think it's bad for college football that we lost such an icon, that we lost kind of the face of the game, and just a little something will be lost from it. But at the same time, I really think this kind of opens it up a little bit to where parity is probably not the right word, but I think we'll have more of a rotation of who wins the SEC, who wins the national championship. I was just looking at it yesterday. Ironically, Jake, the last 10 national champions, it was either Alabama or it was a team that beat Alabama. So, they're literally a factor in every national championship race, and I don't know if that's truly good for the sport.
Yeah, I was looking at the Vegas odds, courtesy of Ameristar Casino Pin Gaming. Since yesterday, Alabama's moved from second behind Georgia in the way too early national championship odds to 11-1 back in the pack. And so I would say Vegas thinks it's definitely going to make a difference. We had Drew DeArmond on Tighter Insider first hour. He said, I want to get your thoughts on this because I know you're plugged in all over the SEC. He is hearing it's down to 3. It's not going to be Kiffin. It's either going to be Kalen DeBoer, DeMarco Ryans, or Steve Sarkisian. Do you agree with that? Are you hearing something else? If you were just for fun throwing at the dartboard, who you got?
Yeah, I think one name that I would add to that would be Mike Norvell at Florida State. Just given all the uncertainty of the future of Florida State and what league they're going to be in, they just went undefeated, Jake, obviously, and they didn't make the playoff. That says a lot about that league, and just the fact that, and credit Mike Norvell for doing it, but his roster a lot through NIL, a lot through these transfers that a good majority of them are off to the NFL. So he's almost having to rebuild his roster this offseason. I think there's a lot of signs that point to Mike Norvell being a legitimate candidate for this job as well.
When you look at just, Georgia, I think obviously is, you can say, hey, they are the, odds-on favorite to win the Southeastern Conference. Does this move Texas right to number 2?
I guess on paper, Jake, but I'm not buying all this Texas hype. I'm truly not. And I know that may sound crazy. They just went to the playoff, but they fell flat in the playoff. And it's winning the Big 12. That's one thing, and they did it one time out of like the last 14 years. Coming into this league, week in, week out, having a difficult row. But I don't think it's any slam dunk. I would be more surprised, Jake, if they went if they went undefeated, then they went 8-4. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
that doesn't mean I think they're going 8-4, but I think they'll lose a couple in the SEC because they're just not used to the grind they're about to get into.
Let me ask you about Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. It looks like Kiffin, unless something drastically changes, he'll be at Ole Miss next year. Do you agree with Vegas? 11-1 odds, right there with Alabama, top 5, top 10 type program. I mean, you look at what Ole Miss has done in the transfer portal. Yes, Quinshon Judkins will be playing at Ohio State next year, but your thoughts on the momentum that is going on in Oxford?
Yeah, and he may be the big winner of this whole thing, Jake, because he couldn't beat Nick Saban. Obviously, they don't play Alabama next season, but they may face, or at least may have faced Alabama in the SEC championship game. So I think that is something to consider as well. But yeah, in my mind, Jake, Ole Miss has gone from playoff contender is what a lot of people are labeling them. I'm already saying national championship contender. I think they should be of that caliber next season.
Well, so when you look at it, let me ask you this same question for Missouri. Does Missouri deserve the same love and respect, so to speak? I mean, Vegas has them down a little bit further. If the guys that are coming back produce like they did this year, can Missouri make that similar run?
Yeah, I think so. Year 2 under their offensive coordinator Kirby Moore, a lot of these quarterbacks and overall offense takes a big jump in year 2 of a system. It's going to be a little bit more difficult replacing defensive coordinator Blake Baker. But if you look at Missouri's schedule, I mean, it's a joke. And I don't know if you saw this the other day, Jake, but I ran the numbers of just the combined records of every SEC team next season based on their opponents for this season. And Missouri's is far and away the easiest, just based on that metric, easiest schedule in the SEC. They do have to go to Alabama. All of a sudden, Alabama doesn't look quite as fearsome without Nick Saban. Missouri's going to win 10, 11 games next year.
Yeah, we were talking about that list you put out yesterday. That was good work, as always. And let me ask you this, and we'll get you on your way here. Way too early. I mean, you look at Sam Pittman, coming off of a year where he's got to produce. You look at Shane Beamer at South Carolina. You look at Billy Napier at Florida. Could we see a potential coaching churn inside the league again next year?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of these coaches, I don't even know how they survived this offseason, Jake. Sam Pittman specifically is who I'm talking about. But, yeah, Billy Napier and the grind he's got upcoming, it seems very unlikely that he's going to survive unless they take a massive jump this offseason. And there's always guys you don't expect, like Nick Saban. And Lane Kiffin's always eyeing another job, seemingly. So, yeah, I think this is just the nature of it. And now that we're going to a 12-team format, Jake, I think there's about 8 programs in the SEC, or at least their fans, that think it's their birthright to make the college football playoff. And, they're not all going to make it. So there's going to be heck to pay for these coaches that fail to make the 12-team playoff annually. I truly do think.
Great stuff as always. Michael Bratton, you can find him on X, SEC Mike. You can search it. He's right there. Also, that SECpodcast.com. You can check him out and Cousin Shane. They do a great job all the time with SEC football. Michael, I appreciate you as always, sir. We'll do it again very soon.
All right. Thanks for having me, Jake.